go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Today we're working on this little Ryobi 3818 chainsaw. Now, it'll try to run, but it stutters and stumbles. And if you're holding it wide open, she runs, but she won't run at idle at all. As soon as you let it rev down, it just stalls completely. Now, this is usually caused by the fuel diaphragm in a carburetor. Could be the metering diaphragm, but in any case, the carburetor needs rebuilt. And if you're doing this at home, best bet is to go ahead and just order a new carburetor. But here, we're going to go ahead and replace the parts that need replaced inside this one and give the carburetor a good cleaning and get her running. So, all you new people out there, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, and we really do appreciate it. So let's get started. Okay, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about these little Ryobi chainsaws. Personally, I kind of like them. They're pretty easy to work on, and they tend to run really good. They tend to rev well. So I know I'm going to need one of these two guys. Let's see. I'll go with the smaller one on this. And notice how little we have to do to take this one apart. So we're going to look at it, get a good look inside. We're going to see if it needs fuel lines and all that while we're at it. But we're going to start with the obvious and get the carb off. Because even if you're doing fuel lines, carburetor is going to be all sorts of in the way. We got one more little screw down here. There we go. Let's scoot those out of the way. Okay. Oh, that popped right off. It came off easier than expected. Okay, now when you're doing this, when you pull the fuel lines off, you always want to loosen the gas cap to let the pressure out. And then pull the fuel lines off. If it's an option, go ahead and empty it. Man, the linkage just fell off of this one. See, now we're going to tighten the gas cap again, but we're going to watch our fuel lines to make sure they don't start pouring gas backwards. But there's our carburetor. That one came out considerably easier than most. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and first take a look at what I call the top of the carburetor. This in particular is a Zama carburetor. And there's our fuel diaphragm. And yeah, just sort of what I expected. I don't know how well you can see this. You see the little bulge here and the little indentation there. That means this diaphragm's just about done. So we're going to go ahead and put a new one on. Let's see what the metering diaphragm looks like on this bad boy. Tell you, it's nice to get back to chainsaws and things. I've been working on, whoa. Nah. It actually looks okay. And I know this carburetor is not particularly old for this one. The machine's not very old. So it looks like it might have sat dry, but it might have had a little time running. So let's go ahead and put new diaphragms on. I'm going to go dig up some new diaphragms for this and gaskets. And let's get her back together. In the meantime, what we're going to do is take this and run it through the ultrasonic. Now you can clean through all the passages one at a time, and and blow a carb cleaner through each one. But if you happen to have a ultrasonic handy, you might as well use it. So let's head over here. And as you can see, I've got her warming up. We'll set her for 20 minutes. This carburetor looks pretty good, so that should be enough. Now you see it's running at 59. It's running at 57. It's set for 59. We'll set her for 60. That's Celsius, so that's pretty hot. I went ahead and warmed it up before we got started. She's been through the ultrasonic and she's ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is check the screen right here. If this screen's clogged up, you're going to want to either run it through the cleaner again or make sure you spray it down real good. The screen does pop out and a new one does come with the gasket kit, but this one looked pretty good, so I wasn't worried about it. So let's get her back together. So we'll build it on the plate. We'll add our gasket. Then we'll add our fuel pump gasket, fuel pump diaphragm, depending on who you ask. And we're going to pinch this on the side like this, and you can see it's bowed out a little bit, but it's just holding it mostly in place before we get it to lay in. There we go. Okay, we'll put our screw in. And if you took lots of pictures when you were taking it apart, this part's pretty easy. Okay, now we're moving over to the carburetor, what I call the bottom. So this will go metering diaphragm with the shiny circle down. It'll be down when we put it on the carburetor. Now we're going to add our gasket to the mix. Perfect. Now you got to be careful. This can go on this way or this way or this way. Actually, this one can go on this way or this way. Now it goes on, I do believe, this way. Yes. The holes don't line up perfect if you've got it the wrong way. There's this little tab, which will tell you you're in the right spot. But there is a hole on each side that it'll try to kind of fit into. Notice because I'm using a screw gun, I'm being very nice and easy. I've been using this screw gun a long time, so I've got a good hand with it. So if you're working with a screw gun, make sure you're working with a variable speed that you can control easily. And if you're not used to it, I'd go with a screwdriver. Okay, that's about it for her. So let's get her back on the engine. Now that we've got our carburetor together, we're going to go ahead and put her back on. First thing we'll do is add our choke lever. Because on this particular one, it's a little unique and the choke lever has a pin. And hopefully you took lots of pictures when you took yours apart. If you didn't, and even if you bought a aftermarket carburetor, you want to note little things like that when you're taking it apart. As you can see, it would fall off easily without it. Now we're testing the operation, and it all appears to work pretty smoothly. So let's go ahead and get her back together. Let's get our screw out of the way. And the first thing we're going to do is thread our linkage on the way in. Come on, buddy, thread on. And that hopped straight on. Very nice. So we've got a fuel line down here, but we're going to save it for a few minutes. Next thing we'll do is get our choke lever out of the way and put this fuel line on. Let's make sure we're not tying up with anything. And everything looks pretty good. Okay, so let's get our air filter started. Where are you at, air filter? There you are. So put one screw here, and sort of walk it in. And remember that you've got to go under these two lines here. That's for this one in particular. Because what we're doing here is generic to pretty much every chainsaw ever made. But this is the only one we have to worry about today, so I should say this is the only one we have to worry about during this video. I'll grab my little hook tool, pull these two guys out of the way. We'll very gently lay her in place, and we get our bolts started. That's one. And remember, don't force anything. anytime you're turning something hard or you have to force something to happen, it's probably not lined up right or it's not in right in one way or another. So you need to back up at that point and see what's going on. Now this goes sort of under these lines, so we're going to have to be careful not to pinch them. Get out of my way, lines. Oh. Yeah, be careful to go in the actual hole. Yikers. The hole's deep, straight underneath these lines here. So let's use this to scoot these out of the way. And then we can see the hole a little bit better. And again, I can't stress it enough. Be nice and gentle when you're doing this. Anytime you're forcing something, you're doing it wrong. Now it hopped up a little bit, so let's see what it hopped up for. There we go. Now everything's nice and solid. Now theoretically, she'll start right now. Let's make sure we still operate correctly. And we do. Let's drop her little air cleaner back on. Make sure she'll pump some fuel. Nope. We've got a fuel line that's still out of place. Let me fish that back in. And this would have been a little easier a minute ago. But when you've got all the tools, it's pretty easy anyway. We're going to switch off to the really skinny pliers. When I heard that odd noise, I thought, that's not what it's supposed to sound like. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Oh, we're so close. And now we're so on. Looks good, looks good. As you can see, fuel's pumping correctly. Now we might have to adjust the carburetor. We're going to go ahead and leave the lid off and put her on the floor now. You can listen and tell me how it went. Let's choke it. Sounds like she needs a little bit of a tune-up. She's not really idling right. I believe this one's a Pac-Man. Ace blind, Pac-Man. See, now we're leaning her out now by tightening the screw in. No. Let's try it there. I'm going to put her back on the floor to start her. That's pretty close. Now we're going to adjust the high side so she revs a little bit better. Pretty close. A little bit more fuel on the high side. Okay. And this, I'm going to take out tomorrow and use it to cut wood. And after she's cut wood, we'll know we've got a good saw. But from the way she sounds, she starts pretty good. And considering she hasn't been started in a dog's years, make sure everything's in place. It idles just a tiny bit low, but I'd rather it idle a tiny bit low than a tiny bit high. And that's it. We've got a saw. Now, when you're working on a chainsaw, you need spatial sense just as much as you need mechanical ability. And you need to take a lot of pictures when you take the carburetor off, because getting it back together on a chainsaw is all different than a weed eater or a blower or something. With a weed eater or a blower, changing the carburetor is a 2-minute job. On a chainsaw, you've got to get everything in the correct spot, and you have to go nice and slow. Don't force anything, don't push hard. If you're pushing hard, then you're not lined up right, because it does fall straight in when you do it right. Make notes when you take it apart, what order the linkage went on, what order the fuel lines went on. You can see that one fuel line just hopped off when we took it off, and then it was the last thing to go on when we put it back together. A little hard to get to, but lucky enough, I've got a couple of different types of pliers so I could reach into it. Well, I hope this was helpful, and for all you new people out there, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, and we do appreciate it more than you could imagine. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.